Hello, and welcome to my first ever live stream. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes. I have really good news today, and that is that this morning I surpassed on my YouTube channel 1,000 subscribers, which is a pretty big milestone. And I thought I could talk a little bit about why and how I began the YouTube channel at the ripe age of 59. Let me just adjust the microphone. It's okay. So I found myself in 2020 when I started renovating the old stone house, going to YouTube all the time to figure out how to do things and to learn new things. And it wasn't the first time I used YouTube, but it was definitely the most consistent times that I used it. So when I started doing the renovation myself and got stuck, uh, I decided to just make my own channel and start sharing some of the stuff that I'd learned. Um, it's been interesting. Uh, a lot of things have come out of making this channel that I didn't expect. I'm a little bit socially awkward, and I find now that I'm have the role of YouTuber in a lot of social situations. It makes it a lot easier and more fun. I found that it broke a lot of the isolation that we have from living on the island. There are only 2,000 residents on Kea Island, so it can be very, very isolating, especially in the winter. So that was sort of an unexpected benefit from having the YouTube channel. And of course, it's all about learning and sharing and storytelling. And I've always been a storyteller. The first book I ever wrote, I was 6 years old. I'm a published author of nonfiction. And of course, YouTube is nonfiction, so that ties right in. I thought I'd also want to share with you that the Lavrio area where I'm doing the stone cottage renovation, stone house renovation, the Lavrio area last week or about 10 days ago was declared a UNESCO heritage site, which is pretty exciting because that will mean that funds will be loosened up from Europe in order to save and renovate a lot of the old structures there. It's an amazing area. It has really, really good bones. It hasn't been really very highly appreciated by people around here. Quite a few foreigners like myself, foreigners, non-Greeks like myself, that have been in the country for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, have found their way there because it has so many amazing qualities. It's a small town. It's only, I would guess, about 10, no, I think it's 12,000 people. And it's built on the foundations of the mining community that started there in the ancient times, but was most recently developed by the French in the late 1800s. And I got to give them credit. They built some amazing, beautiful buildings. The house that I'm renovating was built by the French mining company in 1900 or 1910 at the very latest. It was probably for the supervising workers, the low down workers, the workers that were really deep in the mines, lived in barracks. And then there were administration houses, of which my friend has one of them. But mine was probably, this row of houses that I'm renovating, mine was probably for 4 men or something like that, 4 men and his family. But this is in the hill above Lavrio, but this is where many of the mine shafts are. In Lavrio itself, there are beautiful buildings, neoclassical buildings, and they're really in need of renovation and restoration, and that costs a lot of money. And I really think that this UNESCO heritage site status is going to be extremely helpful for the area. It's going to really put a spotlight on what some of us have seen for a while, which is that this area is special. It's a little bit different than other areas. The other thing that I was thinking to talk about is what's going to happen soon on the stone house renovation. this last week was a tough one. It was probably the lowest point that I've had in the renovation project, and that's saying a lot. Uh, there'll be a video next Sunday, and you can get an idea. It didn't last long, my melancholy, but it was a little bit tricky. But we've gotten past that, and there is work continuing on it while I'm not there. I have to be here on Kea on the weekends for work. But next week, we're going to be pouring what we call sanazi. It's a structural thing. And after that, I'll be able to get in there with my crew and get the new roof on. So I see some of you are here, which is great. There are a bunch of people here. Um, what do we have? Louisa Quintanilla, I think. Hi, Marcie. What would you say has been the biggest challenge renovating the stone house? The biggest challenge. The biggest challenge was last week, actually. Knocking down the parts of the wall that had been built to extend the height a little bit. I accepted that that needed to be done, but there was a lot more damage to the house than I had hoped for. And that was really, really disconcerting. I just felt like not 2 steps back, but 10 steps back. By this week, that will be a lot better because all the damage is going to be repaired and the new roof will be on in the next 2. I think I don't want to say anything, but I think it's going to be, it can only go uphill from here. Let's put it that way. uh, and let's see, Ruth. Hi, Marcie. No particular questions, but isn't the Google place going to go to Lavrio? The Google place. There was a rumor about not Google having some kind of logistics area in Lavrio, and there's also a rumor about Microsoft having a campus around Lavrio. I'm not sure if either of those are true. I haven't seen any hard evidence, but it has been in the news. It has been in the news. It's been reported, so that'll be a big boost to the area as well. Lavrio has a much more of a port, the infrastructure at the port than they actually use at this point. Apparently, a Chinese company financed this, built it, and is running it. I don't know for how long the contract is, but that's something common in Greece. And the idea was that Lavrio would service all the islands in the Cyclades. That hasn't happened. Very few islands are serviced by the Port of Lavrio. It's only Kea, Kisnos, Syros, which is the municipal capital, and then some up north, Lesbos, I think maybe Chios. But most of the islands you still have to get to from Piraeus, which is quite a bit longer on the boat. If sort of the peninsula of Greece is like this, Lavrio is over here on the bottom, Piraeus is all the way here. So there's an advantage to using Lavrio. There's more car time to get into the center of Athens, but a lot less time on the boat. So we'll see. I don't know if they're going to actually use the port the way it was said that they would, that it would be servicing all the islands. Up until now, not so much. Lavrio also is unusual in that it continues the traditional store hours, of closing during the afternoon from 1:30 to 5:30. The stores close. Sure, the multinationals that have moved in there, some of the phone companies and stuff like that, they stay open all day. But the mom and pop shops and the neighborhood shops, they all close down at 1:30 and they don't open up again till 5:30. So it's kind of no man's land in Lavrio in the middle of the day, which reminds me of the way Greece was in the 80s, all of it. And I don't know. I like it that they still take that time to go home, have a big meal with the family, have a nap, and then get freshened up and go back to work in the evening. It's hot here in the summer, so it's a really practical tradition. Valix and Rafina, yeah. I don't know much about Rafina, actually, but it's definitely, Rafina service is another port that definitely services the Cyclades already and has for decades. Rafina doesn't, I don't know much about it, but the thing that I think makes Lavrio special is that architecture that we have from the late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah, Ruth's talking about the Lavrio Platea and the Taverna area. It's really nice. It's it's a there are fish. There's a fish market, let's put it that way, an old fish market. And at that fish market, there are some tavernas, some useries, and the food is amazing. Strangely enough, on Kea, we do not have any fishermen. There are no fishermen from Kea, and there never have been. There was one old man named Jimmy years and years ago, but the few fishermen we have are from somewhere else. It's a very agriculturally based island, and the people that live here are mostly farming livestock, and that's goats and sheep, not so much cows, because it's just the terrain doesn't suit cows. It's too rocky. Auntie Tutu, aloha from Hawaii. How cool is that? It must be early in Hawaii. Yeah? It must be about 6 a.m. If I'm not mistaken. That's a long ways from Greece. I used to go to Hawaii quite a bit when I was a kid. We would stay in Kauai. This is back in the 70s. I've been to Molokai, the Big Island. Wow, very different than Greece. Very different weather. We're very dry here. 6 a.m., she says. Wow. Thanks for getting up. That's really amazing. So yeah, the next thing after this sanazia, I wish I knew how it was called. It's like the ring around the top of the house poured in cement with a steel infrastructure. And once that is poured and that cures, which apparently only needs a couple days, funny, just a parenthesis about cement. I don't know how much of you know a lot about cement, but I love the stuff. It needs water in order to harden. It's kind of counterintuitive. So when you've poured cement of any kind, you need to make sure that you water it every few hours for the first, preferably week. And that way it cures absolutely uniformly, and you get the strongest, best quality cement that you can imagine. So after that's done on Wednesday, which of course I'm going to film, and of course I'm going to share it with you next Sunday, then I have to go to America for 4 days for family reasons. Unfortunately, my mom isn't so well. And then I will be back, and I have scheduled for the 26th of June to start with Uncle Marcos and his helper and our dear friend Vagelis, who's a carpenter, who will guide us, and start getting that roof back on. And it shouldn't take more than about 10 days, I'd say. I say 10 days, so let's say 2 weeks. But that's the next upcoming thing. And that's going to be super tricky because it's a multi-level roof with a dormer for a doorway for access to the veranda. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having it on, but it's going to be a tricky job. So Ferdinand says, "Hi, Marcie. Was it difficult to learn Greek? How did you do it back in the day? Greetings from Germany." It was back in the day. I've been here since 1984. I didn't learn Greek for the first couple of years I was here. I was kind of adamant about not learning Greek because I thought I'd get stuck. And that's exactly what happened. And funny enough, one of the first times I realized that I had learned some Greek was when I wanted to build with a carpenter. I wanted to order a loft for sleeping in this little apartment that I was renting. You know, I love building. So that was kind of my first time that I had to absolutely communicate about something to somebody who didn't speak English. And that it just all kind of snowballed from there. I went to classes for a while at something called the Athens Center in Central Athens. Really good intensive classes, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, with an additional 4 hours of homework in order to keep up for the next day. It was intense. And I think that was 4 weeks. Yeah. And that got me started. That got the ball rolling. And yeah, I'm pretty fluent, especially if I'm talking about something that I know well, like acorns, and I'm really fluent. But I make a lot of mistakes grammatically. Not grammatically so much. The gender, in English, we don't have gender. We don't have feminine, masculine, and neutral. It's red. If it's red, it's red. And in Greek, it's kokino, kokini, kokinos. It all has to match up the adjective with the noun. And I have a really hard time with that still. But I make myself understood. So yeah, what was I saying about the roof? The roof is multi-level. I have kind of a um, here's a picture. I thought I'd kind of give you guys an idea. The pink is um, the original roof line. And then this is what happened. We raised it, and then we had to take it back down. It's not going exactly all the way down, but almost. And the new silhouette will be something like that. So that that bit at the top in the middle there is a dormer, what we call dormer in English, which will be access to the veranda. I've never built one of those, so I've been on YouTube looking all over the place trying to figure out how it's done. As I said, we have a carpenter who's going to be on the job with us and advising us, but I'm still a little bit nervous about it because when we've never done something for the first time, it's always a little bit tricky. The other huge job, well, not huge actually, but the other exciting job that will happen right after the roof is on is what we call sauva, the plaster. And I think excuse me, let me just drink a bit of tea. Got allergies. I think it was in my fifth and sixth installments of the Stone House renovation YouTube playlist that I show a lot of the plastering and how we do it. The thing that I don't think I mentioned in that is that plastering should not be done in the summer. I was told that by Uncle Marcos. It's just it doesn't turn out as well, and it's not as strong, and it tends to crack more. So as much as I'd like to do that this summer and have it ready for the winter, I'm going to hold off and wait until October and November when the weather has cooled down a bit, and then we'll be working on the plaster. That'll be a game changer. That'll actually make it look so much better. I see from the middle room how much better it looks with the plaster. And then the other job, I just figure I'd talk about some of the things that are coming up on that. I know some of you are acorn fans, and that's great. And ask me any questions you want about that. As a parentheses, the ones that are here for the Stonehouse renovation might not know that I'm the world expert in eating acorns. I've even written a book, which is on Amazon, called Eating Acorns. That's a whole other thing, and I get a lot of attention for that in Greece. So most people in Greece know me as the acorn person, not as the Stonehouse renovation person. But anyway, so for the house, the other thing that will need to be done pretty soon as we get the wood out of the middle of the room and onto the roof, then we can do the floors. To do the floors, I need to first get the underfloor heating. That's a bit of a controversial issue, and I wouldn't mind hearing from some of you what you think or your experience. My plumber advised me not to do a water pump heat system for the underfloor heating that I want. There are a couple things to take into account. The house is southern facing, so it gets a lot of sun even in the winter. And because the house has 3 levels of 3 steps up each level, that warm air that collects in the front room, that front solarium room, sort of moves up into the house and gives it a good natural heating. It's also been insulated really, really well. I'll have a wood burning stove. And then my idea is just for an hour or 2 in the evenings when it's really cold, just like I do here, just turn the underfloor heating on. And so I'm thinking of the infrared wire that goes underneath the stone slabs that I'm going to be putting on the floor. And apparently, since I've got a cement underfloor with really good insulation and I'm having a stone floor on top, that's a really, really good retainer of heat. And it will actually hold on to the heat and radiate it without costing me a fortune, without having to turn it on for hours and hours. I like a cold house. I like my house to be about 18 degrees Celsius at the highest. So I think this is going to work out pretty well. If somebody has experience with this underfloor heating that doesn't use water, that's electric, and wants to share it, that'd be really great. My long-term goal, my long-term idea is to hook that up to solar after and run it off of solar. So, but that's not going to happen soon because that's expensive. But I'll be setting it up so that it can be plugged into solar at some point. So yeah, Ruth is saying that underfloor heating is really more suitable for more northern climate, but it seems you've made your choice. It takes a long time to heat up. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that, only because, as I said, the substrate that the floor is going to retain a lot of that heat and radiate it over time. I don't know. My experience here in the house here is that I only really ever turn the heat on from 7 to 8 in the evening, after it's gotten a little bit dark in the winter. And it's only ever cold here in January, February, and March. It's really not very cold here in fall. Slow, Littman 78. Hi, Marcie. Is it cost effective to be so dependent on electricity for heating? It isn't. I hopefully I'll be dependent on the wood burning stove more than anything. I got a big one. It wasn't expensive at all. We're lucky here in Greece. We have access to Bulgarian made stuff, which is really, really affordable. And it's big. This thing is made for heating a house of 200 square meters. And the other thing about the house is about this heating system that I have in mind is there will be a thermostat in each room. And so just like I do here, when I'm living in this house on my own, if I'm on my own there, I can close off doors and just heat 1 or 2 rooms. I don't have to heat the whole entire house, that's for sure. And most of the time I will be there on my own. So I think once I get the solar panel set up and I'm producing solar electricity, then it'll be really cost effective. I'll see. We'll see. We use at the guest house that I designed here where I live now. We use infrared panels, and they're not cheap, but they're not near as expensive as you'd expect them to be. And the thing about infrared, which is wonderful, is that it heats the surfaces around you. It acts like sunlight. Rather than your traditional heaters. It warms the room almost in the way that sunlight does. So I don't know how I'm going to pay for all this. Small detail. Taking down those walls and the destruction that happened to the house and all the reparations and changing engineers in the middle of the project because the old engineer was part of the reasons I got in so much of a mess, has been really, really costly. So I'm not exactly sure, what's going to happen. This is going to be a project that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to have to happen slowly. And while I'm doing this, I'm also running my company single-handedly. Today, as an example, I made 200 packages of cookies this morning. So yeah, if business goes well, everything's fine. So here, let me catch up. Carolyn Turner, we use underfloor heating in our Zakynthos. That's a beautiful island. And it works, but yes, takes a while to heat up. We use AC on warm while heating up and our open fire. Well, that sounds like about what I want to do, use a combination of things. I'm south facing, and I really don't think it's going to be a problem. Even though the house hasn't been sealed up at any time during the renovation, it's never gotten really cold. It's been surprising, especially after we put the 5 centimeter thick insulation boards in the floor and 5 centimeter on the veranda. So that room that is finished, those 2 rooms that are finished, they're surprisingly warm, even though they're hanging open in the winter. I mean. Auntie Tutu in Hawaii says a friend had flour company made from ulu, breadfruit. Oh yeah, I've heard about that. But was very laborious to produce. She closed it last year. I thought it great idea to make alternative flour, but she charged $15 per pound. Well, that's about what I charge. That's kind of what you have to charge if you take it onto account. It's extremely labor intensive acorn flour, but it's super nutritive and it has a really historical role in our diet, and it just seems like really a shame not to eat it. So anybody who has acorns in their garden can definitely make flour in the fall. But what it involves is harvesting, and then you dry them out for storage, for ambient storage. I'm trying to use as little electricity as possible in my methods. And then when you're ready to make flour, you need to put the acorns in water, cold water, and the bitterness is leached out, it's tannic acid. It's the same exact thing that olives need to go through before they're eaten. You can't eat an olive off the tree. You have to first rinse it in water for months at a time. Acorns only take days. And then after you rinse all the tannin out, you dry them again, and then they're milled into flour. So it is really labor intensive. I haven't even talked about the harvesting. Harvesting is, they're not lined up like almond trees. They're in really out of the way, prickly places, and it's a job, but I love it. I do love it, and I run a volunteer program every October here on Kea, and people come from all over the world to learn more about acorns, and I get almost, excuse me, allergies. I get nearly 1,000 letters of interest about my volunteer program every year. And I choose about 10 people, and I try to choose people that actually have something to do, like some real interest or experience with acorns, because the idea is that whatever they learn, they bring out into the world, and they're kind of ambassadors for my acorn gospel. So Litman 78 says again, I live in Thessaloniki. That's up north. That's a lot colder. And I use solar panels through net metering. So you are on the right path. Yay. Oh, that's really good. And Thessaloniki is a lot trickier than here to keep things warm. The place where my house is basically has the cyclic climate. The other reason I chose it, I probably said that in my videos, is because you get all the advantages of being near the city, near the capital, but you have the feeling, the vibe, if you will, of being on an island. It's kind of low key down there. It's at the end of the road, if you want to call it that, on East Attiki. Attiki is the county that Athens is in. It's at the end of the road. It has, very chill vibe. And of course, from my house, I can see islands. I can see Macronesos, and over the top of that, I can see the island that I'm on right now, Kea. So I love that. At the same time, it's kind of nice once in a while to get in the car and go to the hardware store at 7 p.m. And also, I'm a big opera fan. Not an aficionado. I really know very little about opera, but I love it, and especially like trying to sing it. But anyway, so now I get to go to the opera regularly now that I will have a bass. Shout out to my friend Sue, who has a house just about 300 meters away from the house that I'm renovating. And that's where I stay when I'm renovating. It's my home away from home. And she has just been the most incredible, generous friend. It makes it just so much more pleasant to do the renovation job when I have to do it. So I thought of Sue now because she's also an opera fan. So I finally found my people, people that I can go and watch opera with. So it's important to be able to combine countryside life and stay nearby Athens. Yeah, I agree with that now. Now I'll be 60 in the end of November, and it's not very old, but I don't know. There's a different phase for everything. And I've spent 20 years full-time, winter, summer, here on Kea, and it's been great, but I don't see myself being here full-time for my, in 5 years, let's put it that way, or in my 80s, let's put it that way. I don't know when I'll move from here. The house that I'm renovating, I'm going to be living in part-time on the off season. I'll use it for logistics for my cookie company. That'll be very helpful. And I've designed it in a way that a small apartment can be kind of broken off from it with its own entrance and its own bathroom and everything, kitchenette. And the idea is maybe to rent that either to a teacher. There's a big shortage of accommodation for teachers in the area, or God forbid Airbnb, or maybe family and friends. I don't know. We'll see. So for me, though, it's going to be, I'm really really happy about the decision to start doing Kea part-time rather than full-time. Um, Island life, nearest grocery store is 65 miles. Is that your nearest grocery store is 65 miles away? Wow, that's that's far. I mean, I don't have any problem like that. I'm right at the port on Kea. I'm 400 meters away from the port, so I ride my bike down to the grocery store 2, 3 times a day. Especially in the winter when it's so lonely and kind of I don't get lonely, but it's isolated. I like to go down there and just say hi, see some people, and, yeah, no, I don't have the problem of being I'm not that isolated, and 65 miles is a long ways to be from a market. Um, so yeah, what else can I talk about? The house, what else was I thinking? Doors and windows, that's another huge expense. And I don't know, we'll see. I have really expensive taste. That's another problem. But I don't mind, waiting until I can put the things in the way I want them to be. So, I will be using aluminum doors and windows. I know that's another thing that some people get upset about, but I have had so many problems with wood, in the last years. I've had so many problems with you probably saw the pergola, well, might have seen the pergola, smashing on the veranda here on Kea. That was I can't remember which episode that was in the Life in Greece, playlist. It was a huge wooden pergola, and it was completely, eaten away by I don't know what. I never have been able to discover what it is. It's not carpenter ants. It must be some kind of flying insects because they're not living in the wood. I've had the same problem in the house, in the beams here, in the roof, in the windows. I love wood. I love wood. I was always kind of militant about everything being wood, and that's why I had so much of it. But I can't keep up with it. I've really had a hard time, even though all of this wood has been treated and retreated. So I opted for aluminum, and the new aluminum windows and doors are, they have nothing to do with the ones of the past. It'll either be double or triple glass, and I'm probably going for a very dark, dark, dark green gray. I've actually got the name of it. I found the name from New Zealand. It's called, one of my little notes. I write all these notes to myself to remember things. Karaka green, which is kind of yeah, it's something between a super dark green and a gray, which goes really nicely with the area because the area is full of pine forests. And so green works really well. Um, so yeah, those windows and doors, I will probably be installing in stages. Like the ones that don't have any windows at the moment, obviously need to be done first, and then the ones in the front, those green ones, which are super ugly and not at all efficient, those will probably be the last to be replaced because they'll be some of the most expensive ones. And then the other thing that I mentioned in my next video, and you'll see, is that I'm going to also establish a garage, a little garage for my bike. There's a little extra building in the back garden of the house, and that's going to make a perfect shed for my e-bike. I don't actually own a car. When you see that Golf in my videos, that's a borrowed car. That's not mine. I get around on an e-bike, and I guess I'll eventually have to get a car, but for the time being, I'm fine on the bike. So, um, I don't know what else, I can, add to that about the house. Um, as I said, I'll just let you know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna put out another video next Sunday. I'm going to leave for the 20th to the 25th. So there won't be a video coming out that weekend, and there will be the next week. So I'm going to be trying to keep up with these weekly videos, except for that one week I said. But yeah, we'll see. Sometimes I might not be able to make it. Life tends to get in the way. I'm really very happy for all of you that joined me here. And I just I most likely all of you are subscribers, but just a word about that. Subscribing really just tells YouTube that they should support us, those of us that are making videos. That's what it comes down to. So I really appreciate you subscribing. The fact that you've subscribed, or that you're thinking of subscribing, or you do subscribe, I could not appreciate it more. It means everything. It doesn't cost anything, and it really makes a difference between success and non-success on these YouTube channels. So thank you so much for those of you who have told me how much you like the channel. And take care. I hope to see you next month. I think I'll be doing one of these live streams once a month. Yeah, it for a first time, not too bad, I guess. Take care. Bye-bye.